We're now going to move into Venetian painting. The Venetians used an oil paint on their panels. They used an oil paint on their panels. So their paintings look very different from those Italian fresco paintings that you've kind of grown accustomed to seeing. Well, because they're using an oil paint, there is a certain softness, a certain glow that is typical of Venetian painting. And you're going to see that in terms of style, Venetian painting is a mixture of elements from the remainder of Italy, which is due south of them, and of northern Europe. We start with this guy, Bellini, and he's so famous for paintings of the Madonna and Christ child in what is called a Sacra Conversazione, which simply means a sacred or a holy conversation. It's when you have saints and the Madonna and the Christ child. They're all obviously from different time periods, and they gesture to one another and seem to converse within the painting. The St. Job altarpiece is one of his very early Sacra Conversazione paintings. Compare it to the one I'm going to show you next. Here is the St. Zachary altarpiece, and it is also a Sacra Conversazione. There is a sacred conversation taking place within. But there is some obvious Italian high Renaissance influence here. You see, the prior one, the St. Job altarpiece, was, in terms of date, contemporary with the early Renaissance period. Whereas this one is contemporary with the high Renaissance period, and you can tell. There is obvious Italian high Renaissance influence here. You can tell by the fact that there are fewer figures in this one. Fewer figures. You can also tell by that solid triangle that is set into space with a very easy perspective. It's not a forced or overly dramatic triangle. It's not a forced or overly dramatic perspective, as in the other one, the earlier one. Look at the architecture. The painted architecture creates the illusion that this is an extension of the space that you are standing in. All of the perspective is equal to the viewer's eye level. Look at how great that is. If you look at the far right and the far left, you will see that there are two sorts of columns or pilasters. Only the ones, the outer ones, the ones on the far right or the far left, only the outer ones are real architecture. The one right next to it that has all that fragile relief sculpture on it is actually painted upon a flat wall. Doesn't that just blow your mind? Look at how real that looks. This is a mixture of mathematical one-point perspective that you know the Italians are so proud of. However, there's some Northern European influence here in the rendering of space according to the observation of light. Look at that light! Such warm atmosphere, it's so softened, it's almost hazy. Still talking about Bellini, this is his Feast of the Gods. Some great mythology in which you have the Olympian gods reclining at a feast. You have little nymphs bringing in some wine, and the little dudes running around who are part man, part goat are, the satyrs, and they're carrying in some food. But look at the oil paint, at how it allows for this soft, glowing atmosphere? Look at the landscape beyond. It's this wild, tree-filled, sort of green with growth forest. Look at the sense of observation that was so prevalent in Northern European art. From the reflections of the helmets to the light capturing the drapery, just igniting it with color. Look at those reds and greens. Each pebble, each rock is described. The reflections on the picture. I mean, look at this. It is also very sensual. Look at the glances. Check out the seated couple in the center. Look at that exchange. Ooh la la. It's a relaxed, joyful scene in an idyllic landscape. And in both art and literature, this idyllic landscape, this sort of perfect world, is called a pastoral setting. It's on your word list, a pastoral setting. Pastoral settings show up in art for centuries more. Just for fun, I want you to compare these two. We have Bellini's Feast of the Gods there on the left, but on the right, we have a very, very famous 19th century painting by the artist Manet, his Luncheon on the Grass, as it is called. Manet borrows from the Venetian artist the concept of the pastoral setting. Look at how similar these landscapes are. That pastoral setting's going to hang around a long time. When you walk in a museum in the United States today, these are the kind of paintings you see by Bellini and his followers. Bellini was a very successful teacher. He's going to teach, actually, the next two artists that we're going to cover. He has a lot of followers. So when you walk into, say, the New Orleans Museum of Art, we have like two of these there. This is typical. Madonna holding a standing Christ child. Very stable composition. The face of the Virgin Mary will look the same in just about all of these paintings. Giorgione is one of Bellini's pupils, and Giorgione will continue on with the pastoral setting, which you of course learned from Bellini. This painting here is called Pastoral Symphony. It is sometimes thought to have been painted by Titian. Here's the next guy we'll look at. But that has really been disproven. Unfortunately, textbooks have a hard time keeping up with that. So if you ever see this painting and it says Giorgione or Titian, that's just silliness. It's by Giorgione, no doubt about it. That landscape is very soft and very pastoral and very idyllic. But something odd's going on in the foreground here. You have two clothed men and two naked women. Ah! Nobody is exactly sure what the real subject matter is here. We have one woman playing a flute, another woman on the left with a pitcher. Can't really tell whether she's collecting it, a liquid, or pouring a liquid for, say, a sacrifice. Not entirely sure. There is an interesting painting by the artist Raphael that I want you to look at next, because it's important for you to see how the Venetians are painting versus how the rest of the Italians are painting down in Florence and down in Rome. Look at Giorgione's figures. They are not sculptural by any stretch of the imagination. Instead, they're very soft and plump and like Pillsbury Doughboy-like, with these soft dissolved contours. There is not focus on correct anatomy here. The sense of geometry in terms of composition is looser here in Venice. There's also something else really important. Notice how the figures share importance with the landscape. You know, it's entirely possible that Giorgione's love of nature and love of poetry is simply the subject matter. Because if you look on the right-hand side of the painting in the distance, you'll see a shepherd with his flock, which is one of the great artistic symbols for poetry. You will usually find in pastoral settings a shepherd and his flock somewhere in that landscape. You know, the two women could be this sort of subconscious conjuring up by these two men. Perhaps they're trying to write poetry. Or maybe the two women are muses. Maybe they're muses and they're invisible to the men and they serve to creatively inspire them. Regardless, it's a painting about subtlety of form, attention to landscape, love of nature, music, poetry with this great pastoral mood. This is what is going on in the rest of Italy. I just want you to see how different this is. This is Raphael's Galatea with the sculptural figures, muscular, bodybuilding kind of stuff. Look at how alert and energetic the figures are. How violent, how twisting. They have such a strong sense of geometry. They seem a world away from Giorgione's Pastoral Symphony. There's only about 4.5 years in between these two paintings.